Welcome back for Season 3 of All Things Excellence, where women in leadership and business come to be challenged to learn and to grow. I'm your host, Chelsea DeBruin-Colbert, clarity coach, Enneagram guide, community builder, and your go-to girl for becoming the most excellent version of yourself. Here on All Things Excellence, we are obsessed with shining light on women who are doing the deep work and playing full out in the arena. We bring you their brilliance, their stories, and the magic they bring into the world. This season, I'm determined to step into the most powerful, profitable, peaceful, and aligned version of myself yet. So buckle up, because I'm bringing you with me. When one woman rises, we all get permission to rise as well. If you're ready to grow, rise, and step into your next level with effortless ease and love being surrounded by women who are doing the same, you're in the right place. Welcome to All Things Excellence. Hey, All Things Excellence fam. Welcome to a little episode about my recent client conversations. I don't know if it's going to be a series, but probably going to be bringing it back. Client conversations, things I've been talking to my coaching clients about lately and my one-on-ones and my groups. And the thing that I want to bring to you today is thoughts that no longer serve you. Now, I'll tell you, when I wrote the outline for this episode, what happened was 2 days back to back, I had some coaching appointments where very consistently there was this common thread coming up where clients had a thought that once served them, once protected them, and is no longer needed and is now holding them back. And there was this moment with one of my clients where we're in a group conversation, and I asked her a question, and I can't even tell you what the question was, but my own soul answered. Have you ever said that? Have you ever had that before? Like where you ask a question out loud to somebody else, and it's almost like your own brain answers the question for yourself in your head. And I remember grabbing my pen and paper and writing it down on a little sticky note and pulling it off the sticky note pad and putting it to the side and thinking, okay, that's a conversation I'm going to have later with my coach. I'm going to take a picture of that later. I'm going to send it to my coach because something's happening there. Like, I don't know what that was about, but that's a thing and that's real. And I've been really dragging my feet around something, trying to make a decision. And I have not really understood why I couldn't make a decision. And we'll get to that in a little bit. And I can tell you that since that happened about 10 days ago, and then since I wrote this episode out a week ago, there has been mountains of things that have unfolded around my personal experience with this. But I will tell you that it all started with the decision to allow this thought to come up and ask myself, does this still serve me? Is it still protecting me, or is it holding me back? And so when we talk about thoughts that no longer serve you, what you first need to know about is you need to know that you have your conscious and your subconscious brain. And I first started learning a lot about this back in 2011, 2012, when I was working with a coach. Her name is Deb, and she had workshops that we would go to. My mom and I would go to these. I did some one-on-one coaching with her, and she always talked about the conscious and the subconscious. She had these two little mannequin heads, and the subconscious was like, her name was Hilda the Rule Keeper, and it looked like a little librarian, right? She had gray hair, and it was pulled back tight in a neat little bun. She had tiny little glasses. She wore like a black, it was just the mannequin head, but it also had kind of the shoulders. So you could tell like she wore this black tight dress where she had a white button up underneath, and it was just really tight and came up really, really far on her neck. And again, she was the rule keeper. You could just tell, like type A, followed the rules, created the rules, kept the rules. And then the other mannequin head was the conscious, represented the conscious mind. And that was Tawanda. And Tawanda had rainbow colored hair that was just shooting out every which way, some curly, some straight, just shooting out all over the place. Again, rainbow colored, and she had sky diving goggles on her face. And it was the greatest representation because our subconscious brain exists to hold all of the files. Like we once touched the stove and it was hot and it burnt and it hurt. And our subconscious brain is the rule keeper that keeps track of all of those things to keep us safe. And our conscious mind is the one at the edge of the cliff, ready to jump and leap, right? I was thinking about my nephew Cooper when he was 1.5 years old. I knew that we were in big trouble because I was like on the other side of the kitchen, and he had crawled up on top of the bench in the kitchen, which was like an old church pew. And I could see, like, y'all, I'm like across the kitchen from him. And to his brain, he was just like absolutely no fear. And he still has no fear. Now he rides motorcycles with no fear. He at least has enough fear that they've convinced him he has to wear a helmet and all of the pads. But it took a lot of convincing because, again, no fear. And I watched him quickly jump up there, and he jumped up on the ledge of that little pew, and he flailed himself off. I am like 6, 7, 8 feet away from him. So I go running at him, diving at him, grab onto him, catch him, and he's laughing and having a really, really good time. That is an example of living fully in your conscious. He did not have that many rules yet in his subconscious brain telling him that if you jump off of this and your aunt is on the other side of the kitchen, there is a high probability that you are going to smash your head on the kitchen floor. Like, this is not going to be good, and this is going to be painful. So I don't know, maybe that's why he's like launching his motorcycle off, because at 1.5 years old, I taught him somebody's always going to sacrifice their own body to catch you. So some of these lies are from fear, right? They're fear-based. Nothing has ever happened. It's just a fear that you were maybe born with, or you grew up and, something was happening in your environment, or maybe it was a fear that was spoken over you. Maybe your parents had this fear from something that happened to them. And so they were constantly reiterating this fear, and their fear became your fear. And some of these are real and you still need them. Again, we shouldn't touch an oven. If it's turned on, it's going to be hot. It's going to burn your hand. But some of these thoughts no longer serve you. Someone that I love following about this is Dr. Caroline Leaf. I've read a lot of her books. I've been to her seminars. I've done her programs. And what I love about her is essentially she's like a really super crazy smart brain doctor. Okay, let's like dumb it down all the way to the end. Super, super smart brain doctor who has dedicated her life to showing the science of what's happening in the brain and bringing the Bible alongside it and showing how everything that's happening is biblical. And the Bible tells us to take every thought captive. Now, when I hear that, take every thought captive, when I have something come up, so what happened with me in that moment was I asked that client a question, and what popped up in my head was, we were talking about her job. Like, if she released a certain part of her job, if there was a task that she chose to no longer do, what would that mean? Like, but what would it mean to her identity, to her value, to her worth? Like, what part of her still showing up and doing this part of her business that really wasn't serving her anymore? What was the story being told in her head if she stopped doing that? And when I asked her that question, I heard the answer to myself. If I'm no longer in this leadership position, I don't have a job. If I'm no longer in this leadership position, I don't have a job. Now, am I talking about my coaching business where I make the majority of my income? Am I talking about my VA services business where we help a few small businesses with their VA services, web management? Nope. I'm talking about my direct sales career that I've built over the last 17 years, that I've been going back and forth with, that I haven't done a ton with over the last decade, but has paid me remarkably well. And in my head, I heard, if I'm no longer in this leadership position, I don't have a job. So I grabbed that thought and I held it captive. I wrote it down on a sticky note and I put it to the side. And then later I picked it up. And guys, what I want you to know is when I talk about holding a thought captive, I mean physically grabbing onto it. This is how in my brain I physically grab onto it and I hold it in my right hand. And I hold it out in front of me and I look at it. And I look at it from every single angle. Like, why did I have this thought? Where is this thought coming from? Is this thought serving me anymore? Like, what might be different if I would choose to release this thought? And what I realized within that was this thought was created for a really good reason, and it served me really well. So what you need to know is I'd started really working this direct sales career in about February. Well, towards the end of April, I'd pulled out a sticky note and I'd written on a sticky note June 30th, and I put it on the top of my monitor at my corporate job that I had right when I got out of college that I absolutely hated. I was super miserable. The company's awesome, but the position that I'd been an intern for the company for years, all the way through college. But the job that I got, that I went after, that I wanted, that I applied and received was not fun. It was not fun. The department was not fun. It was a toxic situation. I was in therapy. There was a lot of notes. You know, when you look back, you're like, that was a toxic situation and probably should have been a lawsuit, but that's for a different day. And so, rightfully so, I felt like God had really guided me to really kick off this direct sales career that I'd grown up with all my life with my mom. And so, I immediately was wildly successful. I knew what to do. I had no doubts. I knew that I could replace my income really, really quickly. And I made a decision at the end of April, I'm going to quit, and I'm going to quit on June 30th. Well, what happened between the middle of April and June 30th was I was in a relationship for several years, all the way through college. We decided to break up. We decided we were better friends. I had to go buy a different house. So I'm working on closing on a house. I'd never closed on a house all by myself before. I'm 24 years old. I was worried, oh my gosh, if I quit this job, I'm not going to have health insurance. Like, how's that going to happen? Because I am old enough that it used to be when you graduate from college, you had to have your own health insurance right away. You did not get to have it through 26. So that's how long ago this was. And so I was worried about health insurance. I was worried about being able to buy my house and get into it. I was worried about having the money to renovate my house because I was buying my house on foreclosure. There was a million things that I was worried about. And so June 30th came and went. Tuesday at exactly noon, July 14th, I closed on that house. Like, Wells Fargo Mortgage called me on the phone at my desk and said, is this Chelsea DeBruin? And I said, yeah. They said, great. This is Wells Fargo Mortgage Department. We're just double checking you still work there. I'm not kidding. 48 hours later, I then left on my lunch hour and went and signed all the paperwork to buy my house. 48 hours later, to the exact moment, HR shows up at my desk. And remember, it'd been rocky. It'd been not fun. Like, I was working with like Satan's sister. I'd been in and out of HR for the last year. Like, it was not a good time. Been going to therapy. They knew it was documented. Like, it was ugly. HR shows up at my desk, brings me into my supervisor's office. They sit me down and they said, we're terminating your position. And I just remember looking at them going, excuse me, what? And they're like, we're terminating your position. Now, also in that, there was like wild, crazy stuff where they're like trying to say, I mean, it was like the most insane stuff where I was such a kid looking back. I look back at that now and going, oh my gosh, like they knew exactly how to manipulate a 24-year-old child pretty much. But never for a minute did I think that anything was bad. I thought, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Like, I have a really hard time quitting things and leaving things, even if they're bad and toxic. It's like been something I've been working on my whole entire life. I was definitely raised in a home where people are like loyal to a fault. My parents would tell you that is the struggle of their life. And so that's like the struggle that I always work through. And so leaving was really challenging for me. So I really truly felt like this was a gift. Like, God had given me this gift. I was leaving. There was money given to me when I left. I was going to be able to have a few months living expenses. But it was still like, even though I internally was fine, I still lived in this tiny town where when somebody quote unquote left this company without cheese and crackers, that's what they would say, because they were notorious for firing people, because they were also notorious for not taking great care of their company and their HR department. They grew really fast. It just didn't deal with some people they needed to deal with. So again, notorious for this happening. A thing would happen in the town. Everyone would know that another person left without cheese and crackers. And so right away, immediately, I started waitressing back at the restaurant that I was waitressing in all the way through college. Like, I mean, it's like 12:30, and my friend who was a manager at the restaurant called, and he was like, hey, do you want back on the schedule? And I'm like, yes, please. He's like, cool, you'll start back at lunch shift tomorrow. I'm like, yeehaw, I'll see you there. You know, like, yes, I had my direct sales business up and going, but like, I'm an expensive girl, and I like making money, and I like to be working and being busy. So like, absolutely, yes. Well, what happened was I immediately show up at that restaurant and start working multiple shifts a week. And people are running up to me, like the newest girl that left without cheese and crackers, like I'd gotten all my limbs cut off my body, just concerned that I was going to be destitute and broke and just alone forever. Like, what will she ever do? How will she ever survive? And so in that moment, that I remember right where I was standing at the front of that restaurant at one of the little checkout screens, and somebody coming up to me. They like walked in the front door of the restaurant and they saw me and they ran to me like, oh my gosh, her whole world is ending. And they said, what will you ever do? And I looked at them dead in the face and I said, oh, I'm fine. I'm in this leadership position with this new company. Like, I immediately looked at them and said it. Like, I am this for this. I'm great. It's great. I'm fine. And that became my response to every single person. And y'all, I mean, multiple times a day, over and over, people are asking me, oh my gosh, how are you? What will you ever do? How will you survive? What do you mean? I'm fine. I'm a this with this company. I'm great. I'm that, And so it became this protective identity that I was speaking out to them. And the reality is I hadn't even hit that position yet, but I was doing all the work to hit it. And I knew that I was only a few months away from hitting it. The decision had already been made in my mind that was going to happen. But y'all, that's again how life works, right? Like, we decide we're going to lose 20 pounds and take on the identity of somebody who is healthy and fit and treating their body like a temple and superhuman. And then all of a sudden the habits fall into place. Like, we decide that we're going to be the 6-figure CEO, the habits align, and next thing we know, the results are on their way. But you always make the decision, and then the habits follow, and then the results follow. And so that's where I was. I made that decision, but I was also saying that a zillion times a day. And I hadn't realized that response was still living in my brain until about a week and a half ago. I was back home for a graduation party, and I was standing in the gym, and my nanny girl, Lizzie, her grandma, her Mimi, came up to me and said, oh my gosh, Yaya, how is the business doing? And I said, Mimi, I feel like I should be honest with you about something. And she said, well, what, Yaya? I said, I actually haven't really done a ton with it in like a decade. Like, not really. Like, I haven't really went after it with big dreams and goals and just like killed it in like a decade. And she goes, well, yeah, that's because you built a really big organization and it's paid you well all these years. I said, yeah, and this is what I've really been doing. I've really been doing alignment coaching with women and helping other women lead retreats. And she goes, and I bet you are so good at it. And I said, well, I am. And she goes, and it seems like you love it. And I said, well, Mimi, I do. And there was something so healing about being back home with her, hearing her response. It's like I'd made up this story in my head that was not just my identity, but like that was my safety, that I could always say that that's what I was doing. And if I couldn't say that, then what would I even say? And how would people look at me? Would people be worried all over again that I wasn't going to be able to survive and take care of myself? And Mimi's response, again, it healed something in me. And it had only been a couple days before that this thought had really popped up. And I will tell you, I know that the timing of this was right on point because I'd been praying that God would, the 8 areas of alignment that I do with my clients and how I walk them through it. I'm always walking myself through the exact same work that I'm doing with my clients. I'm walking myself through it every single day. And one of my hopes for this summer was that I would feel so ridiculously rooted and ready for ads. I wanted to feel so ridiculously rooted in my offers and ready for ads. And part of that I can now see was releasing a piece of this identity, releasing this thought that is no longer serving me. Now, Lizzie's dad, his name is David. And the last time I had to release something this big, that was really hard for me to release, was actually when I was their nanny. So when I was their full-time nanny, it was actually about this exact time of year. I'm not even kidding. I know it was in May because it was right before summer. It was like right as summer was getting ready to start. It was near the end of May. I was getting ready to go on a vacation with my friends for a week to a wedding in California. And their dad got home and we were talking and I started sobbing. And I remember saying to him, like, I'm just so tired. I'm working so much. I'm working full time being the nanny, and then I'm working full time in my direct sales business. And I'd moved up and I'd earned the use of a company car, and my team was massive and exploding and growing. And I was also teaching fitness classes at 5 a.m. So, I mean, I was like really exhausted. And I said, I just don't know how to keep doing it all. And I just, we had this conversation about how then maybe like the time had just come, where I needed to really focus on my career because the kids were going to be, the one was in school, the other was in preschool, and there wouldn't be a job for me forever. So if my job was really exploding, maybe it was time for me to move on. And they would find somebody to take care of the kids for the summer. And I'm sobbing, going like, oh my goodness, I can't imagine not seeing the kids every day. And he said to me, I've learned that the only thing final in life is death. And you can always come back. And no matter what, you will always be there, Yaya. And I have brought David's words with me through so many seasons of my life. And that was one of the things that I brought with me when I was examining that thought. We look at this thought, and I teach my clients to then create a new truth statement from that. And there is a framework about how, I used to believe that. So it's, go like, I used to believe that if I'm no longer in this leadership position, then I don't have a job. But one day I woke up and realized that's a big, huge lie because. And there's this whole framework that follows. And what you do is you create a brand new truth statement out of this framework, which you can go to our book club, go to our leadership book club. The link is down below in the show notes. And you can go into the little hub for our book club and you can pull out the framework to this truth statement, or you can, book an Enneagram alignment session, and we can use that session purely to create a new truth statement, to take a thought that's no longer serving you, analyze it, look at it, see if we can figure out where it came from, see if it once served you, if it once protected you, or if it's really just saturated in lies that have never served you. And we can create that new custom truth statement for you. So what you do then is you saturate yourself in that new truth statement. You recite it, you print it, you put it all over the place, and remind yourself that sometimes you're going to catch yourself still entertaining that lie or that thought that no longer serves you, and giving yourself grace even when you do. Because the reality is that as I'm working this summer to release this thought that no longer serves me, and eventually choosing to release the position that's no longer the best position for where I'm going in my life, I'm also having to give myself grace when I find myself wanting to still entertain the thought that no longer serves me, and not shaming myself or getting mad at myself or getting caught up in it, but meeting myself with grace and allowing myself time to grieve something, a thought that once served me, an era that once served me, an avenue of income that once served me, and a place that once I really loved and that celebrated me big. And so as I close out this episode, I want to give you permission to release the thoughts and the identities that no longer serve you. There's going to be an episode coming up here in a couple weeks with Gina. And the episode with Gina, we're going to get in really deep about the work that I've been doing around this identity. Gina is a cool lady. She's a different kind of coach that helps you, kind of a transformation coach. And so her and I have been doing work then from that, just on that very thing for me. Just like I help women release identities, I hire other people, I hire coaches to help me release identities that are no longer serving me. And so we've been doing some work around that. Again, there are tools inside the book club if you want to join our leadership book club that can help you release old thoughts and identities that are no longer serving you. Or again, schedule an Enneagram alignment session with me. I would love to dive into this with you. But I want to give you that permission that if you feel like you've been dragging your feet on ending a season that's no longer serving you, it's probably because there is a thought, a belief, an identity attached to it, that it's time to prune it and to release it and to let it go. And I not just want to give you the permission to release it, but I also just want to invite you into my coaching space. And I would love to help you do that so you can step into the next version of you that you're ready to grow in. So, as always, thank you for hopping on. Thank you for listening. And we will talk to you all next time. Thanks for listening to All Things Excellence. If something landed with you today, I'd love for you to follow the show, share it with a friend, or leave a quick review. It helps more women find these transformational conversations. And if you're ready for support with your next step or needing someone to stand in the gap with you to figure out what that even is, I'd love to create that space for you. And my intro clarity call is a great place to start because life is too quick and too full to have to figure it out alone. Until next time, All Things Excellence fam, thank you for listening.